Welcome to Chez Davis, Life in France as a Cross-Cultural Family. I am Brendan. I am an American filmmaker, and Susie is a Chinese CPA, and we are busy raising our daughter, Geneva, just outside of Paris. This episode is about the move, what we learned, what we lived through, and what's next. So first thing that you'll notice is that our recording location is very elegant. Sitting on the floor. This is kind of makeshift. We got these floor chairs in our old place, which we'll talk about in this video. But we've made the move. We've gotten settled in pretty well. I feel like I know where everything is. Mm-hmm. I can function. She can function. We've got the essential rooms essentially furnished. And this is kind of the next frontier to get like a couch and some things on the wall, and also, some sound treatment. So I've done my best as a audio video professional to make this sound and camera and lighting work as well as they can. But we're working with what we can here.
We feel like we have to record this important moments, is that because it's at the moment we feel like it's simple, it's easy, we turn to the next page, but turn to the next chapter. But before this, it feels like very difficult. We felt a lot of stress about finding a new place in a new country. We don't speak the language, and we have a 1-year-old baby, and we have so many stuff we need to consider for finding a new place. Absolutely.
So we will tell you more about that as we go. But first, let's talk about how we got here. We will be doing deep dive videos on all these topics, by the way. That will come up several times. So there will be our video all about the rental process in France, how you navigate that, and in the Paris area specifically, how you move to France. That's its own conversation and a long story in our case. But first, we're going to talk about just our moving around since we made the move, where we've lived, why, and the transitions. So when we first were coming here, we found out that Susie was pregnant when we got back to Beijing after a reunion post-pandemic in Paris, a marriage and honeymoon, an extended stay in Europe and the UK, and we went back home to Beijing, my first time back since pre-pandemic when I had to leave. And a few weeks back in Beijing, Susie started getting sick in the mornings, and we did the tests, and oh my gosh, she's pregnant. And that's amazing. But it also meant that it accelerated our timetable for making the move, because we had planned to move here based on a lot of other factors and schedules I won't get into right now, but related to a big work project I have that's coming up here, etc. So we knew we had to move. So there's a long video to talk about. The preparing to have a baby is its own probably multi-part series. But among the things we had to do is we had to find a place to live. So when we first landed here, I'd found a place online where we're looking, and I'm showing her what I'm coming up with. And I found this apartment in the 16th arrondissement, the 16th district in Paris. And that was one of the areas that we knew would work for us because it was close to the maternity hospital that we had picked in the 15th. And Susie's OBGYN, who we had also found remotely, is in the 16th. So we wanted to be close because we knew we'd be making a lot of trips back and forth to see the doctor. So when we first moved here and we had located this, we had identified a place that seemed really perfect, and we're looking online, and the normal rate was really high and out of our range. But we were looking, this was in a few weeks of when we were going to get on the plane, and we didn't have a place yet. We figured worst case scenario, we go into a hotel for a few days and look once we're here, but that's obviously a bigger hassle. Susie's really pregnant by then. And we found this place, and I forget exactly what the pre-discount rate was. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the 16th, which is a nice high-end district in Paris. And I believe that the monthly rate was 4,800 euros before the discount. We paid, I think, 3,350, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was occupied, otherwise, it was owned by this apparently sweet old lady who I guess was a widow. And from the looks of the furniture and the paintings, maybe had moved out of a really fancy house, like maybe an estate, like large scale antique paintings, really oversized even for a large apartment. But it was really nice. And although we got a deal, it was still a lot of money for us, but it gave us a place to have a soft landing the first 2 months we were here. And it was important that it was 2-bedroom, 2-bath, because my mother-in-law was going to come after Susie delivered the baby to help us out. And oh my God, she was a massive help.
Yeah. And I just realized, I just remembered, because you mentioned the paintings, and because we had many sleepless nights in the first 2 months, first 6 weeks, because I just had Genny, and we take turns to take shifts to take care of baby during the day and in the night. And Brennan said, because of those paintings are so old, just in the night, you felt the place is hung. It's ghosts. It
felt a little haunted. If I'm being honest, I'm glad you remembered that detail. I'm glad I'll admit it and share it with you, dear viewer. But yeah, it definitely had a vibe. I definitely felt some spirit energy off of a few of them to different degrees in particular. And the one that was in the hallway that was near the changing table, that one was like radiating something. It wasn't negative. It was just heavy. And several of these paintings were easily several hundred years old. So it was quite an interesting place to welcome our daughter into the world.
and we have rat.
That's right.
In our kitchen.
In this fancy place, we still, there's Ratatouille about the Parisian rat with a dream wants to be a great chef. This rat just had a dream to eat our trash. And yeah, that's I don't know how to add a lot to this, except that I got the scare of one of the scares of my life when I went to throw something away late at night. And I scared her out when I opened the the garbage drawer under the sink.
The place was empty for a while. It seems like empty for a while before we move in. So I remember the first day we moved in there, it was pretty cold. I felt
like
deserted.
The heater hasn't been on for a long time.
Yeah,
kind of that feeling.
So that rat is actually being very comfortable for a while.
Yeah. We interrupted the rat's peace of mind is what happened. The rat was like, "Who are you people? Get out of here." But luckily for the rat and for us, that place was only temporary. That was never meant to be long term. So what we did next was, we were starting to look for we had to look for a new place. That was only a 2-month contract for Airbnb, which we knew going in. And it was great to be comfortable, nice place to land, huge dining table. That was the best feature of the whole place, was this massive dining table.
Since this whole 16 district is more like upscaled, more fancy neighborhood. So basically everything is more expensive. Everything is so convenient. The subway is close by. We have a small grocery store right downstairs. And big grocery store not far away. And marché, the open market. My mom goes to the open market twice a week, so food can be very fresh from there. And we have a bakery very close. butcher shop, very close. Everything is so convenient, but the price is, it's also more expensive.
It reflected the neighborhood.
That was a really, really fancy butcher shop. And the first time we went there for meat, we got some chicken. That was the most expensive chicken we ever had.
Yeah, the I forget how much was that. What did we get and how much was it?
I don't remember.
I think we got the equivalent of like 4 or 6 chicken breasts, and it was something like 28 euros, or it was. That's not exactly right, but it was something like that, where you're thinking, are you kidding me? Does this chicken come with like a little gold coin inside one of them, that you win? That place was never meant to be permanent. It was a great landing pad, gave us a nice soft landing to get situated. But then the real work began to find the place that was going to be more long-term. So let me paint the picture. We're in the maternity hospital. Susie has just delivered our daughter, Geneva, and who is mostly sleeping if she's not crying or eating or pooping. Genny, not Susie, although I guess, to be fair, that's both of you during that time. Not so much crying from you, but they're sleeping side by side, and I'm in like the daddy chair bed thingy, which is one of the most uncomfortable places I've ever tried to sleep, but that's another story. So basically, I'm sitting there late at night while she's getting some sleep, trying to recover, trying to rest. The baby's asleep. And I'm on my laptop looking for places. Looking.
We got to move.
Yeah.
Because we only had a 2-month deal. We have to move to somewhere else.
Yeah, and when you had Genny on January 6th of last year, our lease was up at the end of January. February 1, we had to be in a new place. So I'm looking. And I think it was around January 10th that I did start to panic a little bit, just to be fair. I started to panic and think, oh man, what are we going to do? Because by now, we moved here with 3 large suitcases, 2 carry-ons, computer bags, a few other personal things. Once we got here, we had acquired a baby changing table, a big baby stroller, and a car seat. And oh my God, and now that's another story, the other things we have. But we were rolling pretty deep. We weren't like, it wasn't possible for us to move with like a Toyota Camry from Uber. This is like moving van territory already. This move was moving truck territory. But I finally found this place. We found this little place, and it was a guest house that was behind the garden of a main house, and the guest house had its own little garden and a fence, and then the really big garden for the main house. And it was in this suburb called Champigny-sur-Marne, which we had never heard of. But looking at it, we've had pretty good luck with, we've actually had great luck with places, but generally speaking, we've had pretty good luck. Like if from a photo or a series of photos, you really get a feel for a place. And something about it, when I saw it, and I told you right away, I was like, I think I found our place before I had written to the landlord.
Part of the reason is that it reminds me a place we stayed before in UK, in Ashby, really tiny, small countryside.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to do a video about that place. Yeah,
that's a whole nother story. It's a really, really, really nice place we ever stayed. We love there.
Yeah.
And since this place remind us about the small place in Ashby, so we never get a chance to visit.
That's right.
The Champigny small.
That's right.
Small house.
I had started looking at places, and I was working to try to set some appointments, and we just had to take it on faith that it was, I could tell it was small even in the photos, although they used a wide angle lens, and it was basically very bare bones, very minimalistic, which we like anyway, but minimal to the point of, it's minimally equipped, but
it looks like it has everything we need.
it looked like we had yes, and it mostly did. But we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of the first place that we moved. So first of all, as mentioned, we found it on Airbnb, and that is a key point. Renting here, it can be brutal. It is an arduous process, and we are definitely doing, as promised, a deep dive on the rental process and what you do and all the steps. We're doing that in another video. But the fact that this was an Airbnb let us move in with just simply, having a credit card that worked attached to the request, and we were able to book it. We booked it for 7 months originally, and at the time, we thought that was enough time to let us get situated, and we've been waiting. Among other things, I have 2 different projects that we've been waiting to start, and delays because of this, that, and the other. The Olympics was a factor in the delay last year. And, we thought that by the end of 7 months, we might be able to find a place that's our long-term place of our own. But the timing wasn't lining up. And so we were able to extend and go month to month with our landlord because she knew us and she didn't require the normal rental. We already had 7 months of credibility built up with her, and she knew us and liked us. So it was small, it was turnkey, and it was near Genny's daycare, which is, again, that gets its own video for sure. That was a lifesaver. Being able to get her into the creche, the public daycare system, has been wonderful.
That's I guess for me, it's the number one factor I like it about the Champigny place, because our daycare is just on the other side of the street. So only take 1 minute to go there, and that it turns out the distance is the number one reason we got picked to the daycare, because in our neighborhood there is only 25% of chances you get picked to go to cash, and since we live so close, we get a chance.
Yeah, that was huge. And the neighborhood itself, I'm going to say the neighborhood wasn't pretty. It wasn't Parisian, okay, but it had a good working middle class vibe to it and felt mostly safe. And it just wasn't special in terms of like the reason someone would move to France, but it was fun. Now, the cons for that particular spot are more numerous than the pros. The biggest one is that it was just tiny. There's no privacy. If Genny would take a nap or when she would go to bed, we had to be super quiet because it's an open floor plan with like a little loft bed area, but it's basically one room and then the bathroom. And so if I had business meetings, my business partners are between China and the West Coast US, and here we are in France. So I'd need to have calls or meetings, and if Genny's asleep, I'd go outside. And so when it was spring and summer, I'm like surrounded by citronella candles, and I have mosquito swatters, and just sort of miserable, sort of miserable, sort of miserable in that sense. Another one that Susie got to discover was she helped me discover the limitations of the power pretty quickly.
Oh my God.
Because we were not on our separate power feed. It was just like a split off of the main house, how they wired this place up. So we were sharing the same one like trunk of electricity with the main house, and she had like a washer and a dryer and other things. And although she's very eco-conscious, sort of a hippie earth mother type, and she's, kind of tries sort of zero waste lifestyle, she still has big appliances that she needs to run once in a while. And so we might have nothing on except a few lights in the house, but Susie might turn on the hair dryer. Boom.
Yeah, power is off.
But
yes, a lot of times when we need to cook, we have to turn off the radiators. When we need to do the laundry, we need to turn on everything else because apparently I never know that a washing machine can be the most electricity consuming thing in the whole house. So basically, if you want to use one thing, you have to turn off the other.
So we would be like, in the winter months, like it'd be cold. We have to turn off the heaters and just run the washer. Tiny little washing machine. Grateful to have a washing machine, but tiny little washing machine. No dryer, of course. We had to wait till that was done. And if we needed to do something else, like we need to use our air fryer to heat, because there's no oven, that air fryer became our oven that we bought. And if we wanted to cook something, we'd have to like pause the washing machine, do the cook, finish the cook, unpause the washer. And so we couldn't use any two semi-important appliances at the same time. That was just not an option. There was no oven, as mentioned. It was a tiny fridge, especially in Paris proper, but even out in the suburbs. These really small, in the U.S. it's called a dorm fridge. It's the kind of fridge that you buy your kid who goes off to college, and they have a little thing for their Cokes and waters, Dad, and their beer and stuff. But they have a tiny little fridge in their dorm room. That's really typical. That's the fridge with like the little tiny little door, little freezer door where you can maybe fit like 2 ice trays and a bag of frozen spinach if you're lucky. There was no room to lay things out. The prep space for cooking was almost non-existent. We had the air fryer, which we set on top of the microwave. We would have to like shuffle things and plug it in, use it, clean it, wash it, clean it, put it away. We just couldn't leave stuff set up. We were just living in stacks of things. And, and again, no dryer. So we use the rack outdoors when the weather's nice. But we also had to put a bar in the bathroom. And so I'd try to walk in the bathroom, and I was always having to duck under clothes to like get to the toilet and stuff.
And for people never been to or never lived a long time in Paris before, there's one thing to remind you is that Paris can be very humid in winter. There usually can be 5 months without much of a sunlight. So maybe 1 hour per day kind of a sunlight. It can be brutal. And your place could be very, very humid without windows on the proper sides.
The cross flow ventilation.
So since in our old place, all the windows is in the front.
Yeah, it's all on one plane,
one side.
Like on one plane. So there's no real chance to have a cross flow ventilation.
Yeah, and we do not have another window in the shower room. So whenever we take shower, whenever we cook, so it's just a lot of humid build up.
Yeah, there's a window in the bathroom, but it was on the same side as the front of the house, so there was no good way for it to. Yeah, we didn't have one the other direction to get it cross flowing through the house.
It gets so cold in winter, and could be very humid at the meantime, and gets so hot and humid in summer. Absolutely.
And with the clothes, with the baby and the small little washing machine, I forget what the capacity, I think it was a 4 kilogram capacity, really, really small. And we were doing 2, 3, even 4 loads a day. Sorry if you see this, former landlord. We were running that thing 3 or 4 times a day, and then we were spending quite literally hours between having to hang everything to dry and then moving things around, and then, this stuff's not dry, but we need room for the really wet stuff, so we're taking that and we're hanging it on furniture and laying things out that are half dry. it was full on survival mode, basically. You know, we're grateful for it and we loved it. And if our landlord does see this video, you know, we really appreciate you renting to us for 15 months. But we knew we had to go for our own sake. And the most important reason is our daughter, Geneva. Genny had started to walk. She was just starting to walk at daycare. And this place was so small and so full of our stuff. And she had her playpen, what they call the park. And it's basically, we got one that's 120 by 120 centimeters, and we bought two 60 by 120 mattresses. So she had a 120 by 120 bed inside, but that was also her playpen for during the day. We'd move the mattresses and that's where she would play. She was starting to walk at daycare, and we realized, I mean, we knew a long time ahead that's going to be an issue. It became an issue. We knew we couldn't let her walk around the house. It wasn't safe. We couldn't possibly baby-proof, baby-safe everything. Too many sharp edges, too many corners, too many splinters in the floor.
Yeah, it's so funny. We bought a lot of the safe bumps, but we have no idea how do we put those safe bumps on, because there's so many sharp stuff in an apartment. The whole it's just impossible. We have to find a bigger place.
The idea I had was maybe we just wrap Genny. We can't wrap the house. Let's just wrap Genny in the safety bumpers. But of course, that wasn't a real idea. So again, we were in survival mode. This was not meant to be more of a forever home. So let's talk about where we are now. We were coming to a point in the old place where Genny was going to start. We needed to be able to not keep her in the playpen all day. I mean, we'd bring her out, put her in a chair. We'd take her. Susie took her to the park a lot, let her run around, out into the nice nature park nearby to really let her stretch her legs and get some exercise and some feeling of not being cooped up. But we knew we had to go for the sake of Genny's development and our mental health and everything else. So we realized we need to find a place. So again, the process of beginning to look for a place is getting its own video, which we will have done by the time you see this, and we will link it here somewhere. Up here, I think, is where the links go. And we found this great house in a city right next to where we were. We found it in a city called...
It takes a lot of effort to find a place, and we'll show you how difficult it is to find a place in Paris. Maybe, I believe everybody has experiences finding places in a city. For example, me, I have many years of experiences renting a place in Beijing and LA and other big cities, Beijing. Right,
Beijing, Los Angeles for me.
Yeah, but in Paris, the difficulties can be tripled, 10 times more difficult than other cities. There are reasons we will discuss this later. And we will let you know what you need to mentally prepare, physically prepare for that.
And financially prepare. And we'll walk you through it so that it's easy and straightforward. Again, that video is linked up here. But this house we found in Joinville-le-Pont. In English, you'd say Joinville, the bridge. Joinville-le-Pont we know this area well. One of our best French friends and his family live 3 blocks away from here, and he's one of my colleagues in the film business. And so we've been to his house several times, and we walked around here. We knew this particular neighborhood and this area and this neighborhood in general were really high on the list for us. When we saw this listing, Susie and I, 2 months before we moved, we're looking. And when this one came up, I just thought, this really could be the spot. This looks amazing for us. When I came to tour this, Susie was at home with Genny because I came and saw it on, I think it was a Saturday. And so I came to view it. And on my walk back, because it's about a 15-minute walk from here to the old place, and on the way back, right away, I was video messaging Susie saying, we've got to get this place. They have to accept this. They have to take us. This is perfect. It checks every box. The safety, the cleanliness, the comfort and modernity of the appliances and the renovation inside. But it's a 1930s pavilion house, which is in America, you call it a duplex. It doesn't feel like a duplex, but basically it's one big building that's divided into two houses. And it's a 1930s millwork house with a nice yard. There's safety. We have a fence and a gate, a parking pad, and 2-car garage for a car we don't have, but it's full of stuff to store. And when we have to have deliveries, it's a great place. A truck can pull right in here, and it's quiet and it's comfortable. And this really changes everything. Being here, because most of all, besides our own needs for cooking and appliances and daily life, Genny can run around. She's got room and space.
Yeah.
So this place has so many advantages. It checks all the boxes. It is amazing for Genny. She can walk around, explore, play. There's plenty of room. We have a nice little yard outside that just got mowed today. The landlord sent the gardeners over, and we have a nice yard until those weeds start growing again, and then they'll come and cut them down again. But on a couple level, part of what's so important is we finally can sleep in the same bed again for the first time since Genny was born, because we were sleeping in shifts. We shared a bed at the place we landed in the 16th, and it was still pretty small, but we slept in there before going to the hospital to give birth. But after that, we were sleeping in shifts. So literally moving in here is the first time we've been able to sleep in the same bed. And the neighborhood feels like Paris. It is a Parisian suburb. It feels like a Parisian suburb. It feels like the kind of place you move to France to live on purpose. There was a really cool bonus that Susie reminded me off camera that something I learned from my French neighbor and friend Eric. When we were walking, we were heading to the train station, which is that way as we sit here. Eric and I were walking from his house to the train station to go into Paris for a location scout for a big movie I'm producing, which is part of the reason we ended up in Paris in the first place, is the development of that. We were heading into Paris for a location scout to meet the rest of our team, and we walked by. Across the bridge, there's this area. This bridge goes over the Marne River. Everybody knows the Seine River, the Seine or the Seine River in Paris proper. Well, the Marne River is the other. It's all connected, but it's like the big river down in this area. And there's a bridge that you go across, and there's a big development, big complex. Has clearly been there a long time. A big like industrial type complex. And there's a big smokestack, and he told me that's the only remaining piece. That's the only remaining piece of the original Pathé film studio, built by Charles Pathé in 1906. The Pathé studio was the world's first purpose-built film studio. When film cameras developed, people were shooting outdoors, late 1800s. People would take like a warehouse and repurpose it. But Pathé Studio in Joinville-le-Pont, a 5-minute walk from where we're sitting right now, is the birthplace of film, the modern film studio. So it's really cool that's our big landmark, and our new neighborhood is the smokestack from the original studio.
The reason we choose this area is Brendan went to check multiple places, like more than 10 houses and apartments. For every places, we would do a little research about the safety of the neighborhood, if they have cash, daycare close by, and kindergarten later, and even primary school. So we would do all of that. And here, Joinville-le-Pont is specifically this place is close to all the schools and everything. So that's not just because this neighborhood is safe, but also because everything is so convenient.
Her future crush is a few blocks away. The next step after the daycare, that's a block away. The primary school's a block in the other direction, and there's a high school like 2 blocks from that. We have a 3-year lease, and it's renewable every year. Basically, we could say we want to leave, and the landlord, I guess, I think we could say we want to leave, but the landlord is technically obligated to let us stay here unless they want to sell it, and there's a process for that. But we plan to stay here at least 3 years. We could stay here longer if we don't have the money to buy our own place. Renting here makes me happy, I think, for the long term. So I mentioned really early in the video that when we landed, the place we landed, it was close to 5,000 euros a month. On the rate, we paid like 33.50, I think. The guest house that we lived in, the Airbnb rate was a little less than 1,800. It was like 1,700 and change. When we went direct, we dropped that down to 1,500 euros a month, and that included all the utilities and everything. So that's a relatively good deal. Although it had its trade-offs, that's a relatively good deal given the market. This house is 2,200 a month for the rental, and that 2,000 is the rent, 200 is our charges that include certain charges, trash removal, yard maintenance of there are air conditioner units that we have air conditioners upstairs, which we haven't used yet. But maintenance,
which, by
of
the way,
ACs
is luxury in Paris.
Absolute luxury. When it gets really hot, and it does get really hot here for a while, when it gets really hot and also the mosquitoes are constant, we'll be keeping the window shut and turning on the ACs. And actually, because Genny was getting it, mosquitoes love my wife. They adore my daughter. The mosquitoes use that baby like a pin cushion, just chink, 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 chink. And we're not having that again. So we will be able to, because there aren't screens on the windows, and it's not practical because of the way the shutters work on most French apartments. So you can't really put a screen in there. So this move was not just physical. This was emotional and psychological and spiritual. This place really lifts us up as a family. So now that we're settled in here, we're very functional on a day-to-day basis. We've had some time to reflect. Genny's at daycare right now, which is why we're able to be down here in the mid-afternoon and record this. We've learned a lot of lessons, and Susie compiled a bunch of them for you.
I think the number one notes I wrote for myself, also now for you, is prepare all the documents ahead, because from our experiences and many other people's experiences, that unlike the other places, you find a place online, you contact the phone number or the email, and you can go and check. It's not the case in Paris. In Paris, because of the law, because the tenants are protected by the law, so the landlords are usually are usually worried if they can't get rid of the tenants. So before they let you see the place, they will check all the documents you have. They will try to know your job, know your income, know the whole situation with you, your family stuff, and then they will see if they will decide if they want to let you see the place.
They will consider.
Yeah, exactly.
They will consider showing you the place. So building that dossier, again, it is a massive, extensive process. it's unlike anything I've experienced anywhere else. Susie, the same. And we've lived, Los Angeles, in my case, Beijing, for both of our cases. And it's really next level what you have to prepare. And the fact that they won't even show you a place, and the demand is so high that they often don't even respond to inquiries. And again, they're running ads for places. Agencies are running ads for places to rent, and you follow up on the ad, and I mean, it's not uncommon. Sometimes it's because someone has snatched it already. Somebody's rented it before they even got to looking at your message. But they just have so much incoming that, they're very.
And within that document, one of the most important, I just mentioned income. This is difficult for French, for locals. It's even more difficult for foreigners here because for example, our income is all from overseas, not from France. So to prove the income is actual work to do. For us, we used GrowMe, a website
It's a guarantor. France relies on guarantors. It's very common. The law, at least as it pertains to Paris, and there are versions of this throughout the country, is that your take-home pay or income, take-home, not gross, your net must be at least 3 times the monthly rent. And most people, especially in the city of Paris, wages are not high here. That might be a shock to you if you have never looked at living here or don't know people here. But although Paris is very, very fancy, the average person doesn't make what they would make in some other place. If you did the same job in the States or even in Beijing, relative to the other costs of living, wages are not high here. And therefore, most people have trouble meeting that qualification threshold on the rent. So they use a guarantor service. GrowMe, this video isn't sponsored yet. I'd be happy if they wanted to pay us money and promote them. We were very happy with the service, but basically for a fee, these third-party companies, or some banks will do it if you have a banking relationship. Our bank, BNP Paribas, apparently will do it, but they also work hand in hand. All the major banks work hand in hand with GrowMe, and they forensically go through all the documents that you give them. They ask you for things to satisfy them, and then they basically issue a certificate that you can show to a real estate agency along with everything else you submit that says, yes, you are qualified for up to this amount of rent per month. And so getting that, with us having only foreign income and foreign savings and not earning in France yet, not having French tax returns yet, not having French jobs yet. I'm self-employed and I do film, and that's project to project. So it's really feast or famine. It's either a big chunk of money and then you have to make that last in the years when there's no money. And Susie quit working. She finished her maternity leave benefit a few months after Genny was home. And so our situation is very unique, but that's part of why we have our own YouTube channel, is to tell you things in ways that may be applicable to you. They're not the same typical thing you hear from everybody else. So you have to prepare a complete dossier for the agency to even consider you. And then once you actually have put in an offer, you're still not home yet. You're still not home yet. What's your experience with the way people act around money? They believe in the work-life balance, to their credit. That's part of why I wanted to live here in a major way. But what's something shocking you discovered, Susie, about the communication standards?
Brennan's from the US, I'm from China, and both are really hardworking countries with hardworking peoples. From our specific experiences of getting a rental place in Paris, I was amazed by the sales agent yes, everybody has non-working days. They take breaks, but even if they has something they about to sell, because we send our offer to the places that we want to rent the place, but our agents just not checking emails and not reply, and just after his 2-day weekend, which is Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, he took Sundays. Sundays and Mondays are his chosen off days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just if I am a saleswoman, what I'm really happy to say is my case is closed. The stuff I'm selling is sold. I would be very happy. But here it's very different. It's just my day off is more important than anything else. I don't care about my my performance comparing to my off days.
Yeah, Susie, it was so funny because they, generally speaking, and there are exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, this is 100% true 99% of the time. People do not deal with email for the most part. People don't touch work email, and legally they have no obligation. And actually, companies cannot contact them after hours or on the weekends and say, like your boss cannot bother you on the weekend or at night, with some qualifications and exceptions. But nights, weekends, whenever you take your weekend, like our real estate agent does his Sunday, Monday, but that's your time. So work-life balance is a real thing, but it also means, that you might feel like you're being ghosted. And Susie cracked me up because at some point she said, "Don't they like money here?"
It's just it's insane because from both our culture, basically it's nothing makes me more happy if my goal accomplished. But here it's not the case. It's just the goal is a goal, but I need to take my break, and nothing can mess up with my break.
Vive la France.
This is just the introduction of the whole series later, because we want to introduce you to more detailed our experiences of getting a new place in France. So to give you an idea for you to use later.
Yeah, this the topic of renting in particular, we'll go into that. That deserves its own video. And this video is really meant to be just about the feeling of moving, learning, longing to settle into a place, and what it's like now that we actually are doing that. So thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments what shocked you most about this video, if anything, or in a move that you have had, and what felt familiar from our conversation. And tell us your story. And if you have any ideas for things you would like us to cover in a future episode, we will take that under advisement. Until next time, see ya.